My name's Edmund Nagle I. I grew up in Camden, northwest London. My mother was born in England, but grew up until the age of 30 in Australia, where her both parents are from, originally of Irish heritage. My father was half English-Irish, half Polish-Jewish. I was brought up kind of in northwest London, in various different places, seeing as my parents split up when I was 6 years old. And I had a reasonably good kind of middle-class childhood to an extent. My dad was a IT kind of businessman. He ran a few IT businesses, and my mother originally was an actress, but when I was born and my brother was born, she ended up being a drama school teacher. And what I really respect about my mother is that she wanted to put her kids through the best education no matter what, so she would always work so hard. And even after my father and my mother split, and then actually I think my dad used to earn a lot of money, but he didn't really want to pay for any kind of like schooling or anything like that. And my mum, she just worked, even 2 jobs at times. Like she had a drama teacher, and then she tried to run a weekend kind of drama school business in order to put us through, a private education. Just before my parents split up, I moved to a school in St. Michael's, and I was always a bit of a wild child when I was younger. And I actually got expelled from this St. Michael's school because they used to put all of the lunch money on the teacher's desk. And I must have been about 6 years old, and I decided that I was going to make some big bucks, so I decided to take all of the lunch money from all the envelopes that were on the teacher's desk. And my mother later found me when she was driving the car, kind of with all these envelopes, opening all these envelopes and with hundreds of pounds of people's lunch money and checks. I don't know what I was going to do with these checks when I was that young. And then in the end, my mum made me hand it in, and it was obviously an instant expulsion from that school. So I started smoking, astaghfirullah, when I was very, very young, and it were maybe 12, 13, and then that also developed into marijuana as well. I was kind of probably known as a bit of a party animal, when I was growing up and, doing all this drinking, and I started going raving when I was maybe 15, 16, and I started to get very into drum and bass as well. And I was, going out to a lot of clubs in London and using my older brother's passport to get me into places, and I would always be the one who was like, robbing a bottle from behind the bar, and you know what I mean? I really didn't care about, any kind of like one stopping me having my fun, you know what I mean? It was like, if I have to break the law, if I have to do this, I have to do that, I didn't really see any of this as a problem. I could just do that, I was just having fun. After I left secondary school, I started to I think maybe because I had more time, but also because I was just, it was almost felt like I had done with this experience of, partying and whatever, and I'd done that for like 3 years, I'd done like all these drugs and everything. I just needed to experience something more that wasn't that, I was so over that. Obviously, with this group of people that I was chilling out with then, they were more, very interested in kind of like world politics and stuff like this and things like that. And I was kind of very interested into hip hop and listening to the hip hop, and a lot of the things that MCs and stuff resonated with me, and also what these guys were talking about, in terms of new world order and, looking at the political situation and how slowly, in the last 100 years we've amassed this kind of global economy and everything's becoming linked in, and what the British state was doing now and British mining companies and all these kind of things. The more kind of you dug deeper into that, I kind of felt like all of this fun that I'd been having for the last 3 years, all of this great time that I was just pleasuring myself with, had basically just been based upon lies. And it had also been based upon other people's suffering. Often, we're not told a total lie. You know what I mean? It's not a total lie, but it's almost like a half-truth. or it's a truth that's said in a certain way to pursue a certain agenda. Then when I went and lived in Australia, I lived in Australia for a period of 6 months after I finished school. In my gap year for about 6 years, because my mum's Australian citizenship, I was able to get an Australian citizenship. So I went there and I kind of, you know, I had a bit of a bad experience, and I was looking back at an old notebook I have, and it was kind of like a lot of personal things within it, but then I was going through a very depressing time, and when I was really depressed during that time, I wrote, I think the last line in this notebook was something like, "Please God help me." Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. I am not a king. I only give that title to my Lord, Malikin Nas, King of Men. Well, I'm merely just a foot soldier, ready to draw my sword at any moment. And the way the devil goes, it seems it's moment after moment. When triumphant, try and catch it and to hold it. But I am not a pro yet, with the sword our Lord has given. But inshallah, I stay driven to achieving the right technique and precision, along with sincerity and good use. After I had this gap year and I'd been to Australia and I'd come back, and you know, I was, you know, still hanging out with this group of friends and still, you know, all these kind of things. And I definitely believed in God, and even in some of my raps, I started referring to God as Allah, you know, more in my raps than just as God, you know. So you could see that probably the way I thought of the belief is because the only other belief I kind of knew was Christianity, and I looked at all the other things and I was like, yeah, there's truth to them, but the thing that most resounded with me was Islam. And you know, I didn't believe in, I definitely believed in one true God and monotheism, and what Christianity was bringing to me was kind of like a bit like Trinity. It wasn't really pure monotheism to me, and obviously Judaism was a bit like alienating, like you can't really be Jewish unless your mother's Jewish, even though, you know, I've got Jewish blood in me and my grandfather's Jewish. So, and I had Muslim friends as well, so I felt more welcome into that idea. So I kind of, those beliefs, I kind of like saw myself, you know, yeah, I've got similar belief to these Muslims, you know, that's my belief, even though I didn't regard myself as one of them. And when I started attending uni then, I got involved with King's College Action Palestine. So it was like the Palestine group, and the year before, they had been in an occupation of the university, and that group had been formed out of that occupation, and the occupation was in response to Operation Cast Lead. And so I joined this K-Clap group, and also, you know, there were other groups like Socialist Workers Party and all these other, you know, kind of, there was also a group in our college to like against the cuts in the university. Pretty much anything that was like against the political mainstream, I would be upheld for in a certain way, because my political mind back then was basically like, okay, I've been lied to about all this stuff, and everything that I'm doing is based upon people's oppression and suffering. So, you know, I was in a revolutionary mind state in terms of that's what we need a revolution. It's quite obvious, you know, the only way that it's going to stop, you know, our lifestyles being based on other people's oppression is going to stop is if we have a revolution. That's the only possible way we can change the system to one of equality. And equality was always the goal, you know, equality of not just people in England, equality of the globe, you know what I mean? And which I would say would include reparations to places, you know, like Africa or indigenous people who have been oppressed, you know, more than just like an apology. You need to give back what you've stolen off these people. So I was just like, yeah, so any group that was kind of pursuing an agenda that was against the state and stuff like that, I was down to help them. Always from a young age, I kind of, the official theory of the 9/11 never sat right with me, you know? When I first heard it when I was a child, when I was a 12-year-old, and they said, oh, the Twin Towers have fallen down, I was like, wait, my uncle's in New York, that tower's gone like that, and now it's gonna have hit loads of buildings, and maybe my uncle's dead or something, you know? And it just seemed logical that a tower would fall like that. And when I saw it, I always thought, that's a bit weird. You know what I mean? And I kind of watched all these loose change things when I was really young, you know, when they first started coming out. And I think, obviously, from that point of view, you know, I kind of like had this idea as well when I was looking at all these lies and stuff. I was like, why are they trying to demonize Muslims so much? Or what are they doing that's so good? If these people are actually the ones who are bad, what are Muslims doing that's so good that makes the bad people want to demonize them, you know? Or why are they being demonized? And all those kind of questions were running through my mind, and as well as in the group of friends who I had, who was doing a lot of these research on world politics and, you know, history and all this kind of stuff, there were two Muslim brothers as well, you know, and they would bring, you know, Islam within the realms of things that we were talking about, you know, so, you know, shaitan and the devil and things like that and stuff like that. And I did almost see it, as many people do who aren't even Muslim, as it's not just a war of material, you know, it's also a spiritual war as well, you know, because, you know, a lot of people, you can quite clearly see there's an oppressor, there's an oppressed. I mean, we're told about the Holocaust and World War II, you know, thousands of times in school when you're younger, but you don't hear about the Balfour Declaration, and every little Palestinian kid knows what the Balfour Declaration is. Why are they, you know, why are these big powerful groups of people who obviously are much stronger and have much more influence than these small communities, why are they oppressing them? You know what I mean? Naturally, when you look at history, if you know the history of Australia and you know the history of North America, as the history of what's happened in Palestine is very similar to those situations. You know, a group of people who are not indigenous to that place coming to remove the indigenous people, and that there's lots of parallels to it. I mean, if you look in North America, where the British used to come with people and they used to send kind of like the criminals and the people who were a bit crazy, and they'd say, go to that area and you can have that land, and then those people would go and exterminate some of the indigenous people, is very parallel to when you see in Palestine, you see, you know, the Israeli government, you know, supposedly not, but somehow these kind of like extremist, crazily settler Jews, you know, going in the furthest bits of the West Bank, you know, and causing the most havoc in killing Palestinians and being armed themselves and protected by an army while the other side have stones.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. They say there's 46 in Guantanamo who will never be freed because they're too dangerous, but how do we know they're guilty? If no trial they've ever seen, Obama's clear lie with his pledge and his terrorist threats to bomb and drone attacks.
I basically was involved with all this activism and stuff like that, and I almost saw this as, you know, part of Islam, because I saw that and I knew a lot of Islam as well was about fighting against oppression, you know, and you know, to enjoin the good and forbid the evil. And a lot of the activism that I was doing and the things that I was doing, I saw as that, you know, and I kind of believed that I had the same monotheistic view as Islam. So it was kind of like, I believed what I was doing was Islamic to an extent. I believed, you know, in kind of like the base beliefs of Islam and stuff like that. And also I had an experience in Egypt when we tried to go to Gaza the year after Operation Cast Lead, where a group of activists, we went, and there was a group of French brothers who we occupied outside the Egyptian embassy. And after, you know, most of the French people had left and gone, I stayed with a couple of the brothers in a hotel, and they took me for a Jummah Salat in Egypt. So I went for this Jummah prayer in Cairo, and they teach me how to make wudu. And I just thought it was amazing. And also the love between those brothers, these French, Moroccan and Algerian and Arab brothers, and also for this one brother who kept on going to the masjid opposite where we were staying outside the French embassy. He was just such an amazing guy, and even after everyone had left, he was still going and working with the poor in Egypt, and, you know, like literally getting up at the crack of dawn and going and helping all these people. And I was just like, wow, you know, mashallah, this guy is amazing, you know what I mean? What he's doing, he's double the activist that I am, you know what I mean? And he's praying and he's doing all these things in between. That's amazing. So, you know, some of those characters there kind of inspired me, and drew me closer to Islam, and especially as I went and made this Jummah Salat. And I also stopped drinking alcohol then, like alcohol, you know, after I came back from Egypt, I didn't drink alcohol anymore. And loads of my friends at first were like, well, have you gone all Islamic on me? And I was like, no, not really. And then even though inside I was kind of like, yeah. And I do remember talking with someone in Egypt being like, a Muslim brother from Gaza who was in Egypt, who wasn't that on his deen. And, you know, I said to him, you know, I think I need to become a Muslim. And he said, no, you're fine the way you are, man. And I said, no. So there were these internal thoughts within me, you know, I need to do this. And then I think just naturally as I got back to England and I was rapping and I was involved with a, you know, hip hop scene, and there were a lot of Muslims and stuff like that, I think naturally I just kind of, my beliefs were Islam, you know what I mean? But I wasn't putting it into practice or whatever. And then I don't have a specific point where I said this Shahada, but I was learning dua and little things like that, and I was definitely saying the Shahada mentally and stuff like that. And, you know, I definitely then at some point said it amongst Muslims, you know, and said La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah amongst, you know, Muslims, and definitely my two Muslim friends. And, you know, so I was kind of Muslim at this stage, but then I had an experience where I just woke up one day, maybe just before or during July 2011, where I was like, you know, I've got all this knowledge about Islam. Just like before, when I had all this political knowledge, I had to manifest it somewhere. You know, I had all this knowledge about Islam, and I was manifesting it into some of my rhymes and stuff like that. But I know that as a Muslim, you should be doing this, this, and this is an obligation, and I could die any day. So why am I just beating around the bush, you know what I mean, and not actually getting to the point and actually start praying and actually doing the things that a Muslim is obliged to do? Tomorrow I could go and get hit by a bus, so I should be doing it now. So then I actually first started beginning to learn how to pray via a YouTube video. So that's when I first started learning how to pray. And then actually, when I started to pray more with one of the brothers, a Libyan brother who was in that group of friends who had also, you know, alhamdulillah, started to get more religious and become more on his deen, you know, as I was learning all these du'as and stuff like that. And in that stage, he was becoming far more on his deen, and, you know, started praying and stuff like that before that. And this other brother as well, Musa, who's a Zambian brother, and Muhammad, the Libyan brother, you know, they both started getting on their deen. And then, you know, because I was praying as well, I mean, we all had our fitnas that we were still dealing with from our jahiliyyah, you know, to give up and get rid of. But then, you know, he was helping me and assisting me in terms of little things, you know, when I was praying to correct them and stuff like that. So in July 2011, that's when I started first praying. And most people at this time actually knew me under the name of Ed Greens. This is my kind of like hip-hop alias, and people know me as Greens. They call me Greens or Ed Greens. And when I was in Palestine recently in April, when I first got there, my Arabic teacher, it came about that she decided to call me Abdul Karim, and now everyone in Palestine knows me as Abdul Karim, and everyone in the Ummah and all the Muslims in the UK now know me as Abdul Karim as well. So I didn't really choose the name myself, it kind of fell upon me, but I was thankful, alhamdulillah, for the name. It's a very beautiful name, mashallah, so I took the name. My mother's reaction at first, she kind of, which saddened me a bit, was kind of like, she said, oh, I always thought, you know, Christianity was more feminine and Islam was more masculine, you know what I mean? And maybe that's because she's a woman and I'm a man, that she felt like that. Or also within the West, you can get this impression that Islam is very male dominated and oppressive to women, which if you ask many of the sisters within the deen, and many of the sisters who are English and have come to the deen, or born Muslim sisters, it's not. You know, if you look at what real is Islam, men are oppressive to women. Islam is not oppressive to women. If anything, Islam gave women more rights than the West has, you know, given them. I mean, 200 years ago, people used to sell their wives in the West, and other such nonsense. But anyway, my mother kind of had that reaction, which saddened me a little bit. But then I continued, alhamdulillah, on my deen. And I think later on, when obviously, you know, not straight away after I started Salat, but further down the line, I started to realize, you know, I've got to make a concerted effort. Because before that, when I was in this kind of political, revolutionary, reject the society around me stage, you know, I was a bit short with my mother, and do you know what I mean? Because I kind of felt a bit like she's part of this middle class, you know what I mean, system, upholding the system that I want to change, you know, and she's upholding that, and therefore, you know, almost not content for her. I still loved her as a mother, but you kind of have a bit of like, well, you're just helping the system, you're just as bad as the rest of them kind of thing. But now, alhamdulillah, when I'm doing much more to, like, you know, I do what she tells me, you know what I mean? If she tells me to do something, alhamdulillah, I'm going to do it, because I know she's a sensible woman, she cares for me, she loves me, she wants the best for me. Obviously, you know, within the Quran, it tells us, you know, commands us to only obey Allah, and then straight afterwards to show the goodness to the parents, which shows you how important that is, you know, right after telling us the only thing that you're commanded to do is obey Allah and show goodness to your parents. And that shows you the magnitude of that. And then later on within the Quran, it states that you shouldn't even say to your parents, you know. So you know, today within society and what people do, and what even I myself used to do, you know, the way I used to talk to my mother and have arguments and shout and whatever, you know, I try so much, like, even if I feel like, oh, what you're saying is wrong or whatever, just to hold my tongue and just to try and be, and even, you know, I know it can be difficult sometimes. Everyone has those bad moods where they come home and, you know, someone talks to them and they don't want to have a conversation, but you just got to treat your parents with respect. And also, you know, the Prophet ﷺ said, you know, the strong person is not the person who can, you know, lift the weights or whatever. The strong person is who can, you know, keep calm in a moment of anger. You know what I mean? And when you have that moment of anger to your parents, that's, you keep calm. You don't say, oh, you don't do anything. You just keep calm and you be as kind as possible to your parents and show them respect that they deserve. With my story, everything happened very gradually, you know? So even the drinking thing, you know, it was a very gradual thing, so I kind of like, I didn't really go to the pub and go out that much and stuff like that. And I did a little bit, but then I slowly stopped drinking before I even started practicing Islam and stuff like that. I mean, the smoking and the smoking weed thing, it was a big fitna for me. It was a difficult thing, and I knew that really I shouldn't be doing it. But obviously I was still doing it as I was learning, and I say to anyone, you know, who's coming to Islam, the first thing that you should concentrate on is always the tawheed and your aqidah and the belief, and then, you know, your iman and how you're manifesting that belief in terms of your salat, you know, and then everything else will come from there, you know. Even if you look at the way the Prophet ﷺ revealed Islam, it was a gradual thing, you know. He didn't just one day outlaw alcohol before people had that basic foundation. And so a lot of me I built up this basic foundation, and now, you know, I've only just very recently been able to stop smoking completely, you know. So at the moment, you know, I'm learning Iqra, inshallah, to learn how to read the Quran, learn how to recite and tajweed and stuff like this. So inshallah I build upon this, and I'm hoping inshallah by next Ramadan that I'll be able to read and recite Quran. And also inshallah I want to do lessons for how to speak, you know, Arabic as well, Quranic Arabic, and to understand the Quran as well, because, you know, I think it's very important that when people learn the Quran, they don't just learn the Arabic, they also learn the English and they understand the content of what is being said. You know, and when you learn a dua, learn in your own language so you can be sincere with that dua, not just parrot, you know, recitation that you don't understand what means.